Hello, everybody. This is Scott McDonald, and welcome to our little nationwide webinar on demographics and marketing. Now, here's the thing. You all know that if you want to have the ability to download and look at the previous sessions that we've done, we are going to send you a link to everybody that's registered. If you haven't registered, you won't get the link. I also want to just point out one quick thing that you may or may not know. We are offering or really trying out all of our deepest discounts with you guys. So yes, we do occasionally send out discounts, but this is the group that we're giving the biggest discount. Actually crazy, because we're trying everything out on you guys. Okay, yeah, we're the crazy Eddie of demographics. Now, just to let you know, we have this promotion right now on half price telephone consultations. The reason that we're doing it just with this group is you're the ones who are most invested in what we're doing. It is literally half off, which is, we're not making any money on this. But the thought is, if we got with you guys who are interested and you're going to refer your friends, this is a good investment for us to try, I think. And I'll explain to you real quickly why December is the month to do it. It's because you're going to be facing your family, and they're all going to say, so how's the practice going? Or where are you going? Or what are you going to do when you're an associate? Or when you finally own a practice, what are you going to be when you grow up? That is really the purpose of our telephone consultation. Mike is doing consultations on marketing and marketing strategies. Believe me, he can talk about more detail about what media and messages are out there that you want to be using. I think it's remarkable. I'm talking about the demographics primarily of where to go and why to go into a particular place, practice configurations and all that. And I kind of think it's a good chance to get a lot of information, because we bring facts to everything we do. It's not just off the top of our heads. So here's the thing I'm going to go into today. Okay, Mike, I'm going to ask you in just a second what the heck you can see.
Oh boy, this is always where we stumble a little bit, Scott.
No, I know I look like a bumbling old guy, and you look like a hippie. So can you,
I look like a hippie.
Well, you got the facial hair. I have facial hair too. I just decided to keep my.
I would prefer Mountain Man or something more rugged than a hippie, but that's okay.
We're trying to develop a character called Mike the Marketing Bear. Okay, right. Let me jump in. Mike, can you see this? My screen?
I can't.
You cannot?
I cannot.
Well, that's not a good thing. Let's try that again. I'm going to share my screen. And because it's really, I prepared for this. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Share screen.
There we go. Now it's doing it. All right, now we're sharing screen.
Yes, the bright lights, they frighten me. Technology, I can't handle. Okay. Okay, can you see the full screen?
Yep.
All right, we're going to jump right into this thing. We're going to talk about the cost of living in practice sites. In other words, I want to look at where the practices are going to be not only thriving and growing, but also where you can afford to go. You actually don't need to make as much money in an area that has a low cost of living and low cost of practice. So, and we're going to talk about, our example is going to be Arizona. So I'm going to jump into this. Will the cost of living influence the ideal practice site? If you go into an area that's really, really competitive, yes, it's going to be more difficult. And that's why everybody wants to go to a site that is going to have low competition ratios. But that's actually secondary to being able to make a profit within the area that you go to. So I want to talk about these places and the things you need to look for in sites that are going to be good like that. Now, here's a quick thing that's showing the top 5 states by growth. Now, the point is, why are these areas growing and why are other states not growing? So, number 1 is Nevada. Utah comes second, Arizona comes third, then Texas, then Idaho. And you're kind of going, well, yes, they're all Western states, but why are they doing so well? Well, here's the thing. The growth rate in Nevada comes not so much from birth rate as from people moving from other states. What state do you think they're moving most from to get to Nevada? That's right, California. So we're having a tremendous exodus, and people are finding it easier to stay in the West. They like the weather, and it's not a big cultural difference between the two. Utah has the highest birth rate in the nation, But next to that is Arizona, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, Arizona has grown crazy fast, but it's not just all of Arizona, only part. I'll talk about that in a minute. You have to ask yourself, why? What's making these states grow? Well, it's not the fact that they're the most gorgeous places on the face of the earth. It's because the cost of doing business and the cost of living, if not going down, that is at least is stable. And that's what the point is. It's stable or growing incrementally. Now, if you look at this map, this is a population density map of Arizona. You can tell that Maricopa County is the one that is the darkest red, and that's the one that's showing most growth. But I also took into account the county in the counties in California that are growing fastest, and also the one in Nevada. They all have this in common. Cost of doing business, cost of living, profitability of practices is higher in these places than in others. It is not because there's not competition. So again, in Arizona, Maricopa and Pima counties are doing really well. Now, one of the things you don't know is Pinal County, which is the one that is right between Maricopa and Pima, which is basically between Phoenix, Mesa, and the Tucson. That's where a significant percentage of growth is going because it's one of the most affordable places to live in Arizona. Again, affordable housing is making it so a lot of younger families and retirees are moving there and they're spending their money. So let's go into this looking at Arizona for a second. Maricopa County is the largest one in Arizona. Pima with Tucson is next. But Pinal is growing faster than both of those other ones. Again, because the cost of living, cost of doing business is much lower. You'll also notice, by the way, these are not the counties that have the highest age. Yes, I understand a lot of people want to retire to Arizona, and that's why they're going to some of these smaller places where the ages are so much higher. But for the most part, these are places, if you ever want to consider startup or purchase, are safe. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of statistics here. Total compensation costs for the industries beginning in 2017, cost of the Bureau of Labor Statistics is showing it's about a 2.8% annual growth rate in compensation costs. Now, you may say, well, is that good or is that bad? Look, if it's under 3%, where the costs are going up on an annual basis, that's good. You don't want no growth in how much growth and development is going on. You want to have a moderate amount. And that's why that area just below 3% is very favorable. That's why Nevada, Utah, and Arizona are doing so well. Okay, now just real quickly, you say, what is going up in price, what's not? Now, what's making a lot of places, especially on the coasts, difficult to do business in is because the cost of housing has gone up so much. But if you'll look at this chart here in Arizona, yeah, it's a little bit higher in Phoenix than the rest of the nation, but for the most part, it's within a reasonable amount. Transportation, food, personal care, health care, entertainment, apparel, they're all pretty close to the national averages. And really what we mean is the national index. Now remember, an index is figured at 100. When the number is 100, that means it's very close to the average or the base or standard deviation from which it's measured. You don't want something super high, but you don't want something super low. Finding something that reflects the national trend is what you're after. By the way, the Midwest, Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, they're all pretty close to that too. Now, here's a little thing that I just frankly love this map. I show it a lot, but it's important. I want you to look at Arizona, and what this does is it's saying, what's the personal income migration? In other words, are incomes going up? Are they going down? Arizona is number 2 in terms of how much money has been coming into the state. Texas has done very well, so is Florida, North Carolina, and Nevada. What areas are sucking hose water? Well, New York and California are not doing well. It just means that money is moving out, and with the money go the people. That's why it's easier to go to a place that is in the green colors than those which are in the darker, purplish colors. Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, New York, California, New York, not good. So I'm just saying, if you're trying to figure out where do you go, you can also do the same study per county, where you're saying where within a county is it looking better or looking worse in order to set up a practice. But by the way, don't get caught up in this idea that we're only talking about a startup. We're talking about purchase too. A practice that you purchase within an area that is in the green category, much better. Now, here's the other little thing that talks about relative value of $100. If you went to all the residents in all the states and you said, here's $100, how much is your $100 going to be worth? If you look at Arizona, it's about $100. $100, it's going to be 101.94, which is pretty close to 100. Same thing's true in Texas, Utah, Nevada. But if you look at states like California, New York, Connecticut, you're going to be losing money how much you earn, which means that as a dentist, the value of your working dollar goes down. It's going to be reflected in a few statistics. So let's talk about the cost of living in practice locations, okay? Now, the cost of housing right now is getting very, very expensive in certain states, particularly on the coasts. Now, that's a good thing if you own properties. I mean, a lot of properties. Not so good if you're trying to buy a property or you're running a practice or a business of some kind. The cost of housing is forcing up the cost of living, and that is making things hard. The cost of doing business is figured by other things like payroll. Are you going to have to pay a lot of people? By the way, in San Jose, good example, they're having a very hard time recruiting policemen, firefighters, and teachers. That's because they're generally on a salary that is fixed at a certain level. The problem for them is you can't pay people to do these kinds of jobs well above what everybody else is living is going to be their standard, because they're just going to turn around and say, pay me more. So the cost of doing business reflected in personnel expenses, transportation, accessibility to this place of work is making it much more difficult. That's why if there's a practice for sale in these states with a high cost of living or doing business, fine. But if you're going to be doing something and really want to grow, you got to keep that number down. Now, the cost of labor, often people call it cost of living adjustment or a COLA. Those tend to go up in places generally where there's demand for workers. You would expect that to be the case in, say, San Jose or San Francisco. You got to hire people with lots of money. But the problem comes where the state has mandated a salary of $15 or more, even for people who are doing very unskilled labor. It means that no one can afford the cost of labor. Now, going on, some states are being crazy about raising state and local taxes. The reason that everybody is talking about the death of Illinois is because they've got such a huge unfunded mandate going on within the state that the tax burdens, in order to keep operating and not to go completely bankrupt, means they've got to increase the taxes on state and local taxes. But if you look at what the Republican Congress has just passed this week, they're going to take off the tax deductibility of state and local taxes, which means the rest of the country has basically been subsidizing those high tax states because they're not drawing as much taxes into the federal treasury. And what this has done is it's made those places much more expensive in which to live. So the tax burdens are going up on the state and local. And I'm going to tell you, want to know what experts are saying about this? They don't know what it's going to do. There's so many unknowns about what happens when you remove that tax deduction from a high tax state. One thing that they are predicting is the people with the most money are the first to leave. Now, that may include dentists and physicians. When you're getting taxed out of your living, people are not going to stick around. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the profitability of the dental practice. Obviously, housing, business, labor, taxes are going to influence it, but there's also the profitability of dental practice because there are more regulations in some states than in others. There are limits on where you can put a practice, hours of operation, how much you can pay people, even how much you can charge, that is going to hurt the profitability of the dental practices. Now, If you would like to get that special deal just for you guys on telephone consultations, you have to get it soon because we're not going to keep this promotion going. But if you want to ask us any question, including where babies come from, go to, Mike, like you'd know. Come on, you have 3 kids and looking at you, Scott. You're not even trying. I'm sorry. So here's the telephone consultation code. You might want to write it down. It's WEB, as in boy, IN as in Nancy, ART as in Tom, ELE50. I'm making them long so that you'll be confused. Okay. For those of you recording it, it's going to be good. Believe me, do not delay on this because we just can't keep this promotion going that long.
And keep in mind, that's a 50% discount. That's not 50%. A $50 discount. You will see, for those of you that are communicating with us on a regular basis, we are going to be putting out a additional discount to our wider audience, but that's only a $50 discount on it. And for the webinar for you folks, it's 50%. So I've known Scott for a long time, and he doesn't do 50% discounts. So anyways.
McDonald is a Scottish name. We are cheap. Okay.
He is cheap as the day is long. So take advantage of it. We are going to keep it up. I think we set the expiration for the end of the year, right? I think that's what we did.
I think it's before Christmas. So I'm just saying, if you want to do it soon. Yeah. Even if you want to schedule it in a couple of weeks, it's better to get it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to turn the time over to you. Okay. Mike, go.
So for my piece, I'm thinking a lot about talking about these areas that Scott was talking about as far as parts of the country that are growing and not growing. We have probably a pretty big variety of people that are on the call. Those of you that are looking to buy a practice, maybe still in school, those of you who have been in practice for a little while, and some of you old dogs that just want to start acquiring practices in different areas. So I want to talk about a topic that I think is pretty doggone important, and that is that oftentimes we have the need to reintroduce essentially our practice to the neighborhood because of a lot of different reasons. It could be that you just didn't make the leap from traditional marketing to digital marketing, and then maybe you had a lot of new dentists that moved in that really had a lot of visible presence because they did some more digital marketing and you didn't do it. Or maybe you have acquired a practice in the area and that previous doctor did not do any kind of a marketing, and you're having a hard time getting that engine going. Or frankly, maybe you've just been lazy about marketing. I mean, maybe you've been in an area that you haven't felt like you've needed to market, but you want to focus on it for 2018. For whatever the reason, we have this opportunity to reintroduce your practice to the neighborhood. And for many of you, it may be like you're just starting out again with your practice. So specifically this week, I want to talk about open houses. Now, I'll probably talk about this topic for a couple of weeks in our next upcoming webinars, but just for this week, I want to talk about open houses because I do think it's important. And open houses is one of those things that I think a lot of doctors, physicians, dentists have tried, and it either didn't work or nobody showed up or it just didn't go well. And so I want to talk about the specifics that Scott and I have had experience with over the last 30 years, essentially, on how to do an open house the right way, a way that's not going to bust the bank, but also is going to actually create some buzz in the community and hopefully solidify your tribe, your patients that you're already dealing with, but also possibly get you some more patients along the way. So these are a few tips that I have to be successful. So the number one is, as you're in your planning stages, you don't do a open house for ego gratification. It's not about you. You may think it's about you, but it really is not about you. The reason you do it is to strengthen that community connection. And so it gives you an opportunity to really put on your community hat and shake those hands and let them know how much you appreciate your patients and again, your tribe. And I'm going to use that word a lot today. Your tribe of the people that respect you, love you, all those different things. it's about that community connection. It's almost can be viewed as a community service because you're bringing people together. So under that, people already assume that you're a great doctor unless they've heard otherwise. And so it's really not about showing like all your credentials and all these different things. And a lot of times it's not even showing before and afters or whatever, whatever slideshow you've got going. It's not about that. It's about those people. And if you're a specialist and you're doing an open house for other doctors, the other doctors won't care about your ego either. And so make sure that you keep that in your mind. And so you set that paradigm in the right way when you're in your planning stages. The last thing into this is understand it's going to be scary. The first time you do it, it is going to feel uncomfortable. And not only for you, but for your staff. And you're probably going to get a little bit of resistance from your staff. It's totally normal. Understand that a lot of doctors have a really difficult time putting on that community facilitator hat on. And so make sure that your planning is really thought through. You have every detail planned, everything from the food, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, down to the trash, to the entertainment, to the giveaways, to all these different things. Make sure that your planning is top notch. Because if you do that, it'll be a lot less stressful experience for your staff. And one other thing you may want to consider is you may want to have a discussion with your staff of what is the purpose, what is the goal of the open house. And it's not always to book, 20 new patient visits. That's not always the goal. But if your staff has a really clear goal of what you're trying to accomplish and the reason you're doing it, if they understand the why, you'll find that the event will generally be more successful. So the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is timing. I get this question a lot, what time of the year should we do it? And every time my answer is it really does depend on the part of the country that you're in. Obviously, if you're in Maricopa County in Phoenix, middle of the summer is probably not a great time to do it. People typically try to stay home. They're under the air conditioner. They don't want to really go out too much. And so you'll find that a early spring or late fall event, if you're in that part of the country, is going to go better. Now, if you're a doctor up in Montana or in some of these areas, summer's your best time. And so it really does depend on your part of the country and, frankly, the demographics around your patients, around your tribe. What time of the year is going to be best for them that they want to be out and about. Some general guidelines: don't do it around the holidays. Don't do it around this time of year. Sometimes we have a lot of doctors that will want to kind of holiday or Christmas theme it, their open house. And it's typically a mistake because, as you know, in your own personal life and my personal life, this time of the year is already busy with Christmas parties and neighborhood things and church things and all those things. And so it's difficult to want to be willing to go to one more event or one more party through something like that. So don't try to do it during the holidays. The other time is right at the end of summer. Don't do it the last 2 weeks of August or that first week of September, as everybody's trying to cram in that last little bit of vacation before kids go back to school and all those things happen. So don't do it right at the end of summer. And then the last suggestion would be don't do it during the week of Easter or Passover. So don't do it during that time either, because then you'll run into, again, kind of the similar situation as the holidays, in that people have things planned, they're doing things that they're not normally doing. And so going to your open house may not be their highest priority. So another topic that we get a lot is what time of the day should you do it? Should you do a lunch thing? Should you do a breakfast thing? And again, depending on what your group is, I've seen some events that are a pancake breakfast that actually do really, really well. But again, it has to be the right group of people. I would say, just as a general rule, the best time of the day to do an open house is typically starting around 4:30 in the afternoon and run it through about 7:30. And understand that there will be a little bit of an ebb and flow. You'll have a group that will come, and it will be kind of the people that want to beat the rush. It maybe won't be the families that they're showing up at 4:30. They'll get their finger food or whatever, make their shake the hands, and then they're gone. And so, again, you'll kind of see that flow. So when you have that first flow and by 5:45 everybody's gone, don't end it. because you're going to have another group of people that will come 6:30, 7 o'clock or so. And so that's probably the general rule for time of day. But again, you've got to go back and look at your group of people, what it is that they're going to respond to the best, and that's where you make your decision. Okay, so here's where most people get tripped up and waste a whole bunch of money, in my opinion. It's how do you publicize this event? Do you take an ad out in the newspaper? Do you do a radio ad? Do you bring a radio remote in to the event? How do you publicize it? So let me give you a list of priority or an order of operations that you should do, in my opinion. The very first thing you ought to do is let your tribe know. In other words, your people that are already following you on social media or your patients that are coming through the door. So in other words, you should have a pinned post on your Facebook page that says, we're going to have this event and these are the fun things that are going to be there. This is the drawing we're going to have, blah, 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 whatever. And that should be a pinned post on your Facebook page. But you also should take advantage of maybe printing up a couple little postcards and handing them to your patients for the weeks leading up to the actual event. Again, that's your tribe. That's your people that you can communicate with on a regular basis. So the second thing I think you ought to do is have a staff member or all of your staff members have a goal of calling 10 to 15 people every single day. A personal phone invite will be one of the most powerful things that you can do. And yes, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. And no, nobody is going to want to do it. But after they do it the first time, it's not really that difficult or scary. That will make a very big impact. Now, once you've done those two things, and only after you've done those two things, then you can spend some money on direct mail. Then you can spend some money on some of these other methods that may work well for you and your market and with your demographic to publicize your event. And again, that's the people that are not in your tribe, the people that you don't have an easy connection with. The next topic, and again, I'll finish right here quick so we can answer some questions if we need to. The day of the event, as far as food or drink, Scott always says this, and I think it's brilliant. I mean, everything Scott says I think is brilliant, but this particular thing I think is great. Totally. Good food does not make the event, but bad food can totally unmake the event. And so make sure that you have good food. It doesn't need to be amazing, doesn't need to be fancy, all these different things, but don't cheap out and get some really bad food or just some crackers or something like that, because that can really make the event. And then the last thing is make sure that you match the event for the people that are going to come. If you're going to have a lot of families, maybe you're a pedodontist, then you'll have the bouncy house for the kids. But if you've got an older demographic and that's the people that you're trying to attract, have a retro band come in and do a performance. I've had some success with that in the past with other clients, and they've done really, really well with that. Make sure that your staff's involved, make sure they're trained, and they know exactly what's going on and what you're doing, and again, what that goal is. Okay, how you get a hold of me? Mike at drdemographics.com, or you can call me directly, 435-767-1032. Before I turn it over to you, Scott, I do want to make mention we are going to do a dental marketing mastery program. And I have not put this out to anybody yet. We're going to be putting it out this weekend. We only have 24 slots available that we're going to have in this mastermind. It lasts for 3 weeks, and then we have a new group. And so if you want 2018 to be a great year for your practice, if you want to really leapfrog your competition, and even if you're not a marketer, but you want to know marketing a little bit better and what's happening with your practice, do not miss out on this opportunity to be part of the Marketing Mastery Program. Like I said, we have not publicized yet. We have not put it out there yet, but we will be doing that this weekend. And so for those of you on this webinar, you're the very first people that are talking about it. If you want one of those seats, and we only have 24 seats, if you want one of those 24 seats, you need to email me before Friday, because again, we're going to put it out this weekend and those seats are going to fill up. And so again, Mike at drdemographics.com, or you can call me at 435-767-1032, and I will give you the details that you need to know about this program. But do not miss it. It's going to be a fantastic event, and I think it's one that you definitely should not miss out on if you're serious about being a practice owner and a rock and roll in the marketing for 2018. Okay, I've gone over my time, Scott. Any last words from you? Do we have any questions from the group?
Anybody want to write something down in the comments section? Now would be the time. We will answer that. And I just want you to know how much we appreciate you being here. I want to add one little thing to what Mike said about open house time. I've been doing this now literally for 35 years. He said start around later. I'm going to tell you what I've found works best from my experience. Start at noon and go through 5.
Oh, okay.
Meaning that you'll have an ongoing open house. Think of it as a process, not an event. Sometimes people get all caught up in having a lot of people go through the office. It's a stress on the building and the staff to do that. But rather offer it so that people can start on their lunch hour and end on their way home from work. That's all I'm saying.
No, that's good.
This is according to some communications principles, 2 of them. One is the personal influence model, and the other is the social influence model. You can look them up on Wikipedia. They're pretty well tested and tried and true communications theories. And as you know, I'm a little more of a scholar when it comes to readings, what people have done outside of dentistry and communications, marketing, demographics. So, yeah, that's where it comes from. Now, take advantage of those consultation offers. If you don't, the angels will weep for you, and you will have missed a wonderful opportunity. The other thing is, if you want to look at booking Mike or I into a study club or a dental school over the next year, start sending us your dates that you might want us to do it. And we'll be happy to provide demographic and marketing things. We're pretty entertaining guys, as you can tell. Right, Mike?
At least we think so.
Well, that's right. And our kids think so. Right, Thane? Right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And
we will see you next week. Next Tuesday, noon Eastern. We'll be back here with another exciting topic.
All right. Goodbye.